All right, welcome back, Be Better Tribe. I'm your host, Julian, and this is a podcast where we dive into stories, lessons, and leadership journeys that shape who we become. Today's guest is someone who didn't just coach teams, he shaped lives, including mine. Before building a powerhouse at Cal Poly, Coach Holocher was a national champion at Santa Clara. He went on to play professionally in Major League Soccer with the San Jose Clash and earned a cap with the United States national team in 1996. He didn't just study elite standards, he lived them. But what separates Coach isn't just where he played, it's how he showed up. On the Cal Poly soccer fields, he was the one who started telling us to be better. Not just win, not just compete, be better in your preparation, be better in your habits, be better as a teammate, be better as a man. Long before this podcast existed, that message was echoing across the field. And this one's personal. Coach has always showed up for me, whether that's staying up late until 4 a.m. helping me study or believing in me on the soccer field. I know if I ever wanted to find Coach, it was simple. Walk by his office. Morning, night, the lights were on, the film was rolling, and Coach was grinding. He won a national championship. He played in the MLS. He represented the USA. But what stands out most is the standard he set every single day. Coach, I'm grateful for your mentorship and honored to have you on the Be Better Tribe podcast. But let's start off. Coach, you were the one that instilled Be Better. You started telling us that at such a young age. So if you don't mind, where did that come from? Like, how did that come to fruition?
Wow, I think it might have started to come through my days in college when I was a player in college, and we had that group at Santa Clara where it was my first exposure to a really motivated team, and a motivated goal that people wanted to achieve, and that was our environment every day at Santa Clara. We were grinding, we were working, we were believing in each other, and we had a little chip on our shoulder, to try to get better and improve things. And I think when I first started coaching at UC Santa Cruz, which was, I think I was 26, 27 years old. I'd fresh come off from playing, and I had just retired. And so my very early in my coaching career was all about teaching the habits and, like you mentioned, the mindset and the standards, that we're not just out here to just, to flip the ball around. We're here to get better every single day. And that's, I think, where that came from. Just get better.
I love it. I love it. It sounds like in your habits and where you were focused, in your teammates, at young age when you started coaching at UC Santa Cruz, it seemed like that was just where you instilled it, which is a value for me. I know my friends and I and your former players, we talk about it all the time, which is such an amazing way to live. And now we're thinking about it, like you've been leading young professionals for decades. When you think about your coaching philosophy, and the foundation of your coaching philosophy from the beginning, when you started way back at UCSC to where you're at now in New Zealand, what was consistent? What has not changed over the years from your coaching philosophy and what your values and your foundational framework?
Yeah, I think, maybe the terminology's changed, in reflection. I might not have been using the same terminology as I do now. And I didn't know back then the theory behind everything that, I was trying to look to instill back when I was a young coach. But it was all about that. I believed in development. I believed you could really, really, really improve. And that was the whole crux of it, is like, we have another opportunity to practice and get better, and that was and it's still the same today. When I go do a practice today, even with 10-year-olds, I coached under 10 group yesterday, and under 15s the other day before. It's the same thing. The first thing I talk to the players about is, we are going to get better today. We're going to get better. Isn't this exciting? And I also, tell an 8-year-old, you try your hardest, focus on what we're doing when we're doing this, focus as hard as you can. And I think that's my, in general, that's my philosophy, is that if you apply yourself really well to what you're doing, and give of yourself of it, you're going to get better. And the rewards go way beyond just being a good soccer player. It's hopefully it goes into your your life as a parent or a father, business, all that stuff. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
and when you do that, and I think, like, I recruited you, Julian, to UC Santa Cruz. I saw this player on the field, just a really, really good footballer, you know, um, and when I talked to you, I was like, wow, I could see a player that understood that, or a young man that understood that, and he was excited about that. And you want to try to get around as many of those people as you can. That was really kind of the the secret to our recruiting as well, is just recruit a lot of guys with that mentality.
It, it coach, for me, it was really like, it was really foundational and important as we think about growing as people, as players, is that philosophy of the 1% better. And as you spoke to, teaching that young 8-year-old or the 15-year-old or the college athlete to like take that development mindset, and instilling that is something that, as you mentioned, like I absolutely love, which is great. That's my next question. When you're recruiting or you're thinking about any top tier talented person, soccer, football, sports, work environment, when you're recruiting those individuals and we're thinking about top talent to bring into any organization, is that 1% coachability still on the top of your list? Or what other attributes do you value most when you're trying to recruit those individuals to bring into your team? And that could be a coach that you're bringing on or any sort of person. What are those foundational skill sets or criteria that you bring in outside of just talent?
I think first and foremost, I would look for a passion, a certain type of passion. It might be like an internal drive, but somebody whose eyes light up a little bit when you're talking about whatever you want to go after. You know, I think that's probably the first thing. Even if the person doesn't have, maybe great talent or knowledge at the time, but if they have that curiosity, I think that's, or that kind of passion, that little sparkle in their eye, um, then that they're going to be internally driven, and they're going to be coachable, um, and even more so, those people that are willing to leave their comfort zone, I think, is really, really a great trait. If you're willing to, I mean, shoot, Julian, we were waking up at 6, 7 in the morning to go to training. That's pretty early back in the day, but we did that all
Oh
the
yeah.
time, and it just became, it became very normal, and easy. It became easy for us to do that, to wake up early and to grind. And I think that's that's great. And you try to find people that yeah, enjoy that. In fact, want that challenge.
Coach, 6 a.m. trainings is no news to me. We used to love those winter sessions, 5:30, get up, grind it out, get on the track, get your running shoes. Like, you talked about three things that really resonated. Comfort, getting out of your comfort zone, having curiosity, and the passion. I would say there's countless team members that I still see that we talk about, that I'm actually going on a trip. We're going to go see about a group of 12 of us that resonated with us. Like, we were on those tracks, we were on those in those trainings. I gotta ask, was part of those sessions in the winter to, I'm gonna use the word weed out, but to like build a stronger program where people weren't gonna last? There was individuals that just couldn't step up to that and be committed. Can you walk me through some of that philosophy of like, you did have to be tough on us, you did have to ensure that we were committed, and kind of walk through how you balance like being really tough, being disciplined, being accountable, and like making sure the team member was actually willing to get out of that comfort zone? All right, Be Better Tribe. This is your host, Julian, and we had a little bit of a technical issue with our last interview, Coach Holocher. And I was pretty frustrated after that happened, where audio wasn't coming in clear, and it just didn't upload properly. But the way I look at it is like, now it's an opportunity to make it not just one episode, but I hope and we can make it a couple different ones, because I think there's a lot of depth here, and I think there's a lot of more learnings, more teachings. There's a lot more to it, and so I will be asking Coach Hollaher to join me again. In the next couple months, or whenever we can get a chance to have him on. But what I wanted to do was maybe recap the conversation that we had. And I loved what we brought to the table, and it's a lot of the things that we've already talked about, and I think that's kind of the point that we're achieving now is, success isn't a magical equation. It's not something that is um, that hasn't been repeated time and time again. And what I loved about the conversation is Coach started the conversation with just being better at a young age, where he was part of a team, an organization that really pushed him to be better. And that was the Santa Clara soccer team that he was on. And it was they won a national championship. It was under Coach Steve Sampson, who went on to coach the U.S. national team to some amazing results. And I think that really instilled that value that he mentioned. It was to be better, and it was to push each other to be better. And my last interview with Austin was about the youth, and him and I growing up together, and the fact that we were able to do that with each other, where we had a group of friends that was pushing us. And luckily for me, I played with Coach Hollaher at UC Santa Cruz, where I joined a Division III school to play soccer there, and Coach recruited me early on. We knew each other from Santa Cruz, and I'm blessed to have gone there. It was an amazing journey for me because he was such a great recruiter. He recruited individuals that had that same mindset, that had that passion, that curiosity that he talked about, that really pushed me to the next level. And I'll never forget this. And it's a quick shout out to my mom. I still remember this. We were in coach's office during the recruiting process. D3, no scholarships, it like minimal equipment. Like it wasn't, let's call it a D1 school. It was Division III. It was low funded. However, they just came off a national championship berth. They had a team of winners. They had individuals that really were bought in. They had a great coaching staff, and so I felt the fit right off the bat. But my mom said, "Hey, Paul, Coach, we've known you for a long time," and she just had this one inkling and moment where she's like, if you leave UC Santa Cruz after your freshman year, um, will you take my son? And he said, if everything works out, like, and if that was to happen, yes, I would. And he stuck to his word. And when that came into be, when that Division III to Division I to Cal Poly came about, he's like, yeah, Julian, let's go with three other freshmen from that class. And I was grateful. I was going from D3 to D1. It was up leveling the competition that I was going to be playing in. It was going from a um, you know it just elevated the ceiling of where we could go, and I was just so thankful for that. And I just want to give a shout out to my mom for actually having that conversation at that time. But anyways, as we wrap up, I know it was a little bit of a shorter interview, but what we'll do in the next steps is Coach Hollaher was a phenomenal soccer mind. He was so tactical. He knew what to do. He put players in positions where we could succeed. I really do believe he got the most out of our team. There were elements, though. I want to be very clear. When Coach and I were talking about 5:30 a.m. wake up in college, running our tail off, like on the track, there were a lot of people that quit. And so the questions that I wasn't able to ask Coach was, looking back on some of those players who didn't rise up to the occasion, would he have coached them differently? So that's one thing that I want to talk to him about, of like, how, like, what was his goal of like getting us to the highest level of achievement, getting us to become and develop as individuals. Because for me, I needed that type of coach. I needed that person who's going to hold me accountable. I needed that team camaraderie where he was very clear. He was very much, this is the way that goes. This is the program, and you're on the train or you're not. And my friends and I, we talk about that a lot, and we have stories of like, wow, coach really drove us. But a lot of the times, it's like now in life, we can accomplish a lot. There's bad days in work, but with all the work ethic we already put in together as a team, it really helped us expand. So those are the next conversations that I want to go to, and I will definitely bring on some of those teammates who are on that team and maybe had a different experience, maybe didn't fulfill their fullest potential, but there's going to be a mixed bag. There's going to be individuals who enjoyed it. There's going to be individuals who weren't able to thrive. But I want to learn. I want to learn of like how our team shaped individuals, because like I said, I'll be meeting up with a lot of good friends of mine, and we'll have those discussions. We always have those discussions. We always, excuse me, reminisce about the good old times. And so that'll be over the next couple episodes. I'll have more interviews of individuals that I've connected with, who I'm still close with, that were in that same time in my life with Coach. And again, as we wrap up here, I was honored to play on that team. Some of the best times of my life. The fans were phenomenal. The Cal Poly and San Luis Obispo community was huge advocate of our soccer program, and I met some of my best friends who are still some of my best friends today. So again, all good things don't come from easy paths, and the path that we were on that soccer team was tough, especially in the early years where we had to grind it out. But I think that helped us create the narrative and the story that we were able to tell today. So thank you so much for joining. Reminder, go to BeBetterTribe.com and you can grab some gear. Shout out to an individual who's already purchased that gear. Reminder, all net proceeds will donate to a charity that we'll start discussing over the next couple of episodes. Right now, we're only at 7.89 in terms of net proceeds, but that's okay. We're building on top of that. But yeah, BeBetterTribe.com to get any products or gear. And the second thing is, if you can like, comment, and subscribe, send this to whoever you feel would benefit from these types of conversations. Thanks so much. Hope you all have a great rest of the evening. Take care.